Hi there guys, got a video here for you today on making a moderator for an airgun. More specifically, what we're going to be doing in this one is making a carbon fibre moderator with an aluminium core. And this particular moderator will be 40mm OD and around 120mm long. Now before we begin, I do just very briefly want to say that we don't make and sell moderators. The ones that you see on the channel are just for our personal use and our personal rifles. But with that out of the way, we can begin on with the making of the moderator. There are two main pieces that we have to make for the moderator, the front cap and also the core and back cap. The part that we're starting on is the front cap, and to make this we've just got some 50mm aluminium chucked up in the lathe. This was an offcut I just had lying around, so it is a little oversized, but it will work for the piece that we need it for. And to begin with, we're turning down a boss on one end. Once the boss has been established, we can put a 12x1 thread through the centre. This isn't a through hole, it's a blind one around 12mm deep. And this will screw onto the moderator core and capture the carbon fibre tube. Once the boss is complete, we can flip the part in the chuck and then start removing some of the waste material from this side. It is a little oversized, so we do have a fair amount of waste to get rid of. For now, we're just getting it to rough dimensions, as we will need to finish the job on the actual core itself. So getting it down to rough dimensions for now, and we'll finish it later. Once the front cap is to rough dimensions, we're turning our attention to the core and the back cap. To start with, we've got a piece of 41mm OD aluminium, around 120mm long, chucked up in the lathe. We're starting on the back side first, and we're going to be facing the end, then drilling and tapping the end 1/2 inch UNF. To do that, we're using a pilot drill of 10mm, then coming back with an 11.5 one, and just drilling out the end about 25mm deep. Next up, we can chamfer the hole and then put our 1/2 inch UNF tap through it. Once that's done, we can take the material out the chuck, mount a 1/2 inch UNF male mandrel in the chuck, screw our core onto it, and then start work on the rest of the features. First operation is to take a series of very light facing cuts across the end of the piece to get the face squared up. It's only mounted on a threaded mandrel at the moment, so we can't take big cuts. So facing it first, then coming back with a centre drill. With the centre mounted, we can turn the material to rough length. Once we've got the bulk of the material out of the way, we can take the centre out, put the finishing pass on the face to bring the part to length, then we can re-centre drill the end, remount our centre, and continue on with the work. The next thing we need to do is turn the OD to 40mm. I'm not quite sure what grade of aluminium this was. It was giving me some fairly stringy chips. I only normally buy 6082 aluminium. This one was turning a little differently from the stuff I normally use, and it was certainly making the work a little harder than it needed to be. But after a little bit of hassle, we did manage to get it turned down to the correct diameter. The surface finish was fairly good, and it did anodise nicely at the end. But once we've got the OD turned to 40mm, we can come back and turn the ends down to 38. The carbon fibre will slide over this core here. Next thing to do is turn the centre down to 32mm. This will be the area where the baffles for the moderator are, and to go around the baffles we are going to be using some 3mm thick dense felt. The felt will just help quiet the moderator down a little bit and take some of the pop out of the carbon fibre tube. To hold the felt captive, what we're going to be doing is turning down the centre and then leaving a boss at either end of the felt so that it's held captive once the carbon fibre tube is slid over the top. You'll see what I mean as we progress through the build. Once that's done, we can turn our attention to the front of the moderator and turn down a small spigot on the end, and this spigot will house the matching thread for the front cap. So we're turning the end down to 15mm and then preparing the last 10mm at the end for an M12x1 thread. So turning it down to 12mm, putting the thread gutter in, and then 45 in the end. Once the prep work's been done, we can put the thread on the end, using the front cap as a tester for the threads. Next thing we're going to be doing is turning some O-ring grooves on the core of the moderator to suit 33 by 2.5mm O-rings. So 2 O-ring grooves, one at either end of the core, and to get the fit we're looking for, we're just measuring across the O-rings until we see the diameter that we need. The idea of the carbon fibre tube is 38mm or thereabouts, so we're looking for about 38.25. With that done, we can start drilling out the centre. So obviously it is a moderator and it needs a hole running through the centre of the moderator to allow the pellet through. This moderator is going to be for a 177 rifle, and for 177 rifles I've always found that a 6mm hole is about perfect. The smaller that you make the hole in the end, the quieter the moderator will be. Obviously you can't make it so small that the pellet won't come out, but I have made moderators in the past with things like a 5mm hole, and they are incredibly quiet. I use 6 though, as I've found it's a good balance between getting the moderator quiet, but it also gives you a little bit of leeway just in case something's not quite aligned 100% perfectly in the shroud or barrel threads or anything like that. Next up, with the hole drilled, we can remount the front cap on the end and finish all the faces. The first thing to do is turn the OD and remount the tool and the tool post at a slight angle so that we can face all the back features of the front cap. There's going to be a large diameter boss on the back that will be a close fit into the carbon fibre, and that will just help keep everything nice and centralised. So finishing off all the back faces and then coming back with a 45-degree chamfer tool and just putting a nice deep chamfer on the end. With that done, that's pretty much all the lathe work for the core, and we can put the front cap back in the lathe and put on our little decorative features. On my moderators, I always like a sort of deep dish front. It saves a little bit of weight and just makes the moderator look a little more interesting than a flat end. To do that, we're just coming through with a micro boring bar and getting the recess turned in. With that done, we can now move over to the mill. What we're doing first is milling out some of the waste material in the moderator core. It's going to have integrated baffles, so we're just coming through with a drill bit and drilling out the waste material between the baffles. End mills don't typically like being plunged through material, so coming through with a drill first just makes the end mill's job a little easier. But once we've got all the holes pre-drilled, we can come back with a 3-flute end mill and just start milling out some of the waste material. This is an older end mill, and as you can see by the amount of chips that's packed up into the hole, I'm not too worried about it recutting chips. I always like to keep 2 end mills, one for finishing and one for roughing, and this is definitely one of my roughing end mills. It would be nice to have some spray coolant or just a air spray. I've found whenever I do that, the chips just end up everywhere throughout the workshop and it's a nightmare to clean up. And whilst it's not ideal, we aren't taking massive cuts, so the end mill isn't getting clogged up with aluminium. But once all 3 chambers have been milled out, we can come back with a nice finishing end mill. This one is a long series 8mm end mill, and finish out all the walls. The baffles that you're seeing there are 2mm thick. If you make them excessively thin, sort of like 1mm and under, you do get a little bit of resonance. Lastly, for the core and back cap, we can put some decorative features on, and to do that we're using our 1/2" UNF mandrel in a 6-sided collet block and just milling a little nut on the end. The nut is going to be 36mm in diameter, and then finally, to finish the project out, we're putting our end cap in the same 6-sided collet block and just using a ball end mill to create some nice little decorative features on the end. These features have a dual purpose in that it gives you a little bit of grip on the front cap if you ever need to take the carbon fibre core out. Right then guys, that's pretty much it for this one. We've got the moderator built up, all installed on the rifle, and we did manage to get everything anodised so it all matches the blackness of the rifle quite nicely. If we pull the shroud out, I'll show you how quiet it is. So hopefully the camera will pick that up. The camera does normalise audio, so it's really quite hard to capture the actual sound of a moderator, but I can safely say it's really quite quiet. The main noise coming from the rifle now is actually all the ham mechanism and that sort of thing, so I'm really quite happy with how this has turned out. I am happy to say as well that when the telescoping shroud is all the way sort of pushed back, it does still fit in the box without having to take anything off, so that's always a plus. And with it installed, it does look quite good on the rifle. What I'll do now is I'll take it off, we'll take it to pieces, and I'll show you the inside. So with the moderator off, put the gun over to one side, okay, and just grip the end, give it a little twist, and the end cap should come off nice and easily. Push the core out like so, and then we have the felt that's captive around this section here of the moderator, around the baffle section. Then we have the back cap and core, and also the front cap. So there's the 2 pieces there. We'll screw that on there, that's what we're screwing on. The carbon fibre is slightly longer than the thread length here, so the thread doesn't quite bottom out. There's about 0.1mm difference between that and the carbon fibre length. So the carbon fibre is pressed up against itself, so it can't move or do anything silly, which is always good. We have the baffle chambers in there, 3 baffle chambers in the back here, and then an extra one at the front, with the end cap creating that baffle chamber. But there we have it. That's pretty much it. That was the making of this little moderator here. This is going to be the last video that you see on the Airmaks Krait, as we have got a buyer for the rifle now, and we are going to be moving it on to fund the new rifle coming to the channel, which is going to be the BRK Ghost. We did a poll a little while ago on the channel now, and the BRK Ghost was the winner of that poll. So that's the rifle that we're going to be doing next. But that's going to about do it for this one, guys. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.